When darkness falls in love, it does not announce itself with thunder or flame. It arrives quietly, as systems fail in sequence, as power disappears not just from lights, but from the structures that sustain modern life. Imagine a densely populated city where, without warning, the electrical grid collapses. There is no explosion, no visible catastrophe, only silence in the infrastructure. Elevators halt midshaft, traffic signals die instantly, water pumps stop, and hospitals shift to emergency power within seconds. In the first moments, people interpret this as a temporary inconvenience. That assumption is the first and most dangerous error. A total power failure is rarely an isolated incident. It is typically the result of a cascading systems collapse, where interconnected networks fail under stress. Electrical grids operate on synchronized frequency, commonly 50 Hz in many regions, and this frequency must remain stable. Even a small deviation can trigger automated safety responses. Generators disconnect to prevent damage, which reduces supply further, causing frequency to drop even more. This initiates a feedback loop. Substations begin to fail one after another, not because of physical destruction, but because the system is designed to protect itself by shutting down. Within seconds, a localized disturbance can become a regional blackout. The most persistent misunderstanding begins here. People equate darkness with the absence of light. In reality, darkness represents the failure of multiple dependent systems. Water distribution halts because electric pumps stop operating. In high-rise buildings, gravity-fed reserves deplete within hours. Refrigeration fails, accelerating food spoilage, especially in warm and humid climates where bacterial growth rates increase exponentially. Communication systems degrade rapidly. Security systems become unreliable. The visible darkness is only a symptom of a deeper structural collapse. The hidden science driving this scenario is thermodynamics, specifically heat transfer between the human body and its environment. Without electricity, ventilation systems stop, fans cease, and air conditioning becomes non-functional. In urban environments dominated by concrete and asphalt, heat accumulates and radiates inward. This is known as the urban heat island effect. Indoor temperatures begin to rise, often exceeding outdoor levels, particularly at night when heat release is delayed. The human body, which relies on sweat evaporation and airflow for cooling, becomes increasingly inefficient at regulating temperature under these conditions. Dehydration accelerates. Heat stress begins silently. Empirical evidence supports this progression. During the 2003 North American blackout, over 50 million people lost power. In the first 24 hours, disruption appeared manageable. By the second day, water shortages, food spoilage, and health emergencies began to escalate. Hospitals experienced increased admissions, particularly among vulnerable populations such as the elderly and those with cardiovascular or respiratory conditions. In 2012, a massive grid failure in India affected over 600 million people, demonstrating that large-scale outages are not rare anomalies, but systemic vulnerabilities. From a survival perspective, time becomes the critical variable. The first 6 hours are often stable as individuals rely on stored resources and assume restoration is imminent. Between 6 and 12 hours, degradation begins. Water access becomes uncertain. Indoor temperatures rise. Information becomes fragmented. Beyond 12 hours, the situation transitions from inconvenience to risk. Yet most individuals fail to adjust behavior during this window. They delay action, conserving neither water nor energy, assuming that normalcy will return. This delay reduces their margin of survival. As the outage continues, communication networks begin to fail. Cellular towers depend on battery backups that typically last between 4 to 8 hours. Once depleted, network coverage collapses. Without access to information, individuals enter what emergency management describes as an information vacuum. In this state, decision-making degrades. Rumors replace verified data. People act on incomplete or incorrect assumptions, often amplifying risk rather than mitigating it. At this stage, darkness evolves from a physical condition into a psychological one. The human brain is not optimized for prolonged uncertainty. In the absence of reliable information, stress responses intensify. Cortisol levels rise. Cognitive clarity diminishes. Fear spreads, not because of immediate danger, but because of the inability to assess risk accurately. This psychological shift is critical. It marks the transition from passive endurance to active instability. The convergence of environmental stress, infrastructure failure, and human behavior creates a new phase of risk. Resource competition begins subtly, longer queues for water, faster depletion of stored goods, increased tension in shared spaces. Social order does not collapse instantly. It erodes through small cumulative decisions made under pressure. Each system that fails removes a layer of predictability, forcing individuals to rely on instinct rather than structure. This is where the relationship between darkness and human response becomes most dangerous, because the longer the systems remain offline, the more the environment shifts from a managed ecosystem to an unmanaged one. And in that transition, the rules that once ensured safety no longer apply.